storyteller, Eva Grayzel. She came to a Babs Lab Story Slam. She went up and told a story. She ended up winning the slam. Please welcome Eva Grayzel.
The people I have met in Jacksonville are as colorful as the fall leaves in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, where I lived for 30 years before I moved down here. Walking on the beach, I literally shed my Bethlehem leaves and I replaced them with the fronds of Jacksonville. I open up to hearing the stories of these colorful people. Like the guy who was walking along the beach with his pet boa constrictor around his neck. As we were chatting, he was literally kissing the snake. Or Carrie, she brought her wheelchair-bound son to the beach to celebrate his 11th birthday. He was in the sand, feeling the water. As we chatted, I helped her get him back into the chair and then pull him up the incline to the parking lot on 16th Street. Oh, then there was Jules. This woman was dancing at the edge of the water in a sequin dress, a red beret, and she was on stilts. People want to be seen and heard, some more than others. I always begin by asking a question, just to engage somebody in conversation. And then I always share a little bit of myself, because when I do that, I'm subconsciously saying, I trust you with my story. You can trust me with yours. You would not believe how deep we can get into a conversation when it's even a brief moment of chatting. Well, Jim drags this 12-foot heavy wooden cross up and down the beach regularly. How does someone have such a fierce dedication to a job like that? I approached Jim. He welcomed me with a warm smile, and he began to tell me about his love for the Lord, his Savior. And then I told him about what I loved about being Jewish. I complimented him on his nice teeth and his healthy-looking gums. He chuckled, and he said, "It's the Lord's work." I had to know more. He told me that he prayed and prayed for help to get the dental work he needed, and finally his prayers came true, and a man in the church paid for his dental work. I know a lot about dental issues. For me, my story starts with a sore on the left side of my tongue. I went to a well-reputed oral surgeon in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and I was young, 31, never smoked, rarely drank. He told me to use gels and rinses, and if it didn't improve, to come back. After a couple of months, he suggested that maybe I have my teeth shaved down because they were sharp and irritating my tongue. After another couple of months, he recommended that maybe I should wear a night guard to protect my tongue from my teeth. I followed doctor's orders. I was wearing that night guard 24/7 except when eating. Once, when I went to his office, he said to me, "Eva, maybe your tongue isn't healing because you talk too much." I don't think he said that tongue-in-cheek. I decided I'm going into New York City. I went to a world-renowned head and neck surgeon. He looked at the classic ulceration. He felt an enlarged lymph node in my neck. He did a minimally invasive biopsy. And in an apologetic tone, he said to me, "Eva, you are in an advanced stage of oral cancer." I never heard those words before. I never knew you could get cancer in the mouth. I felt like there was this 18-wheeler barreling up from my feet, through my legs and my belly, through my lungs, and crashing in my head. I didn't hear anything after that. I don't remember anything of the rest of that day. My husband called Dr. Gould, the oral surgeon, to tell him personally that I had just been diagnosed at stage 4. I don't know much about that conversation, but I do know that neither Dr. Gould nor anybody from his office ever contacted me again. Now, I'm guessing he called his lawyer, and his lawyer said, "Don't admit guilt." And he didn't know how to speak to me without admitting guilt. His silence admitted more guilt than if he had simply said, "I'm so sorry this happened to you. We will support you through this journey." I was never really seen. I was never really heard. I felt that I didn't want him to do the same thing to anybody else. The only way for my voice to be heard was to have a lawsuit. We had a week full of courtroom testimony in front of a full jury, and at the very end of the week, the two lawyers settled. It wasn't for a grand settlement, but it was enough for me to know that Dr. Gould would do a much better job catching this disease in its early stages, and he would do a better job at listening to his patients. 8 years after the lawsuit, I was at Yom Kippur services. Yom Kippur is the most well-attended Jewish holiday of the entire year. You see, the prayers, they focus on relationships, not on our relationship with God, our relationship with each other. During the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we are instructed to repair all the relationships in our lives. We are instructed to accept forgiveness, or ask for forgiveness and accept apologies. You see, because metaphorically, on Rosh Hashanah, this book of life is opened up. And you work really hard on making yourself the best person you could be, because on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the book of life is closed, and you're either written for another year in the book of life, or you are not. We typically or traditionally wear white on Yom Kippur, because it's the Day of Atonement, and once that's over, you've got a clean slate. You are ready to begin anew. Also, we clamor to hear the shofar. So the shofar is a real ram's horn, and it has this deep, vibrating sound that it's kind of like someone shaking your shoulders and saying, "Listen up, pay attention already." So 8 years after the lawsuit, I was at the Yom Kippur services, and Rabbi Schrager was giving a sermon about forgiveness. He said, forgiveness isn't for the other person. Forgiveness is for you, so you can move on with your life. I got up from my seat after the sermon, and I began walking down the aisle, and who do I see? whenever I saw Dr. Gould in the supermarket or in the post office or in a restaurant, I would do whatever I could to get away from him. We avoided each other like the plague. But I heard the rabbi's words. I took a deep breath. I walked down the aisle. I looked up at him. I held my hand out. I wished him a Happy New Year. He raised his chin up and down like this. He did not take my hand. And I started to walk away, and then I realized I didn't even do what the rabbi said. I was supposed to apologize. So I should have said, I'm sorry for the pain I caused you from the lawsuit. I'm sorry for any embarrassment, but I didn't. And my heart was beating in my throat. I went home and I could only deal with it by writing him a letter. And I wrote that we both had unspoken words, but it prevents us from reaching that place of forgiveness. And I wrote in the letter that next time I see him, I am going to treat him with respect as a human being who has good intentions and a good heart. And I wrote my phone number, my email, my address. I never heard from him again. 6 months later, I heard that he died suddenly. I didn't know how to feel. I went to Rabbi Schrager and I said, I started on the process of forgiveness. But now what? Now what do I do with this? And Rabbi Schrager said, Eva, it's no longer between you and him. Now it's between him and his maker. It helped ease the disharmony in my heart. During radiation, my husband said to me, let's plan something that you can look forward to. How about in October, in 2 months, we go on a cruise? You don't have to do anything, you just go and everything's planned. I thought, okay, and I looked forward to it. In October, we walked onto the Celebrity Cruise Line ship. We were given a glass of not-so-good welcome champagne, and we met Jim and Diane. They were celebrating their anniversary. For the next 17 years, we traveled on a cruise every October with Jim and Diane. On the 18th year, they had the children they had been long awaiting. So instead of going away, we decided to come to Ponte Vedra Beach to visit Jim and Diane and their babies. It was time for a change, a new slate, a new beginning. Little did we know that the apartment we found in Jacksonville Beach, we would actually move into full-time only 1 year later. I love Jacksonville more than any other place I've lived in all my life. Now maybe I didn't love Bethlehem as much because I never had a best friend. When I made the announcement we're moving to Jacksonville Beach, my mother's friend said to me, I have somebody in Jacksonville Beach you're gonna love. She's my ex-sister-in-law. Franca and I met for lunch, and we have been best friends ever since. Besties are hard to find, and I found one here in Jacksonville. In Bethlehem, when I was sick, my Jewish community came out of the woodwork. They were so supportive. They made meals. They drove me places. I even found someone who loved to fold laundry. When I came to Jacksonville, I tried out a couple of synagogues. None of them felt quite right. I knew that I needed to explore where my community is, who my people are. And I sure found them in Jacksonville. My tribe are dancers. Oh, if you ever go to Bold City Classics big band music, or you go to the Mandala Latin music band, you're probably going to see me. And I am probably going to pull you up and ask you to dance. I competed in the hip-hop competition at the James Weldon Johnson Park last year. And even though I was cut in the first round, the street dancers, they welcomed me and they remember me. My tribe are the pickleballers. I've got 2 communities of them, and man, that is the best form of exercise and community. My tribe are the farmers markets and the arts markets in Atlantic Beach and at Ram. Those are my people. And my religion is happiness. In the fall, when Yom Kippur rolls around, I don't feel obligated to go to the synagogue. But I do love to hear the shofar. Thousands of years ago, the shofar was sounded from the mountaintops to alert people of news, a baby, a holiday, danger. But now, for me, the shofar represents urgency. Urgency to choose the life that we want to live. And to pay attention to the world we live in. And to see and hear the people who live in it. So I'm going to give us all a dose of this wake-up call to find our